Hello, dear listener. Welcome to Calm Cloud Chronicles, where imagination drifts and stories unfold. Sit back, relax, and let the journey begin. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more soothing tales. The Dragon of Eternal Secrets. High above the world, where the endless sky kisses the edge of eternity, floats a sanctuary shrouded in mist, a library unlike any other. It is a sacred place beyond the reach of time, suspended within clouds tinged with golden light. Here, books whisper their own names, and every page is alive with forgotten wisdom. At the heart of this ethereal haven resides an immortal guardian, a being of both awe and serenity. His name is Zephyrus, the Dragon of Eternal Secrets. Born from the first spark of creation, Zephyrus has witnessed the birth and death of stars, weaving their stories into parchment. His shimmering scales glimmer like molten gold in the soft light of ever-burning lanterns, and his eyes hold the weight of galaxies long gone. Every 100 years, the gates of this celestial archive open, not to all, but to one. One seeker, chosen by destiny, guided by whispers carried on the wind. Tonight, beneath a moon cloaked in silvery mist, the air hums with quiet anticipation. A lone figure, a scholar weary from a lifetime of unanswered questions, ascends the marble staircase that spirals toward the floating sanctuary. The scent of ancient parchment and flickering candles envelops them as they pass through the gilded archway. Endless shelves stretch beyond sight, each tome bound in materials of legend: dragonhide, silk, and even stardust. A low rumble echoes through the halls as Zephyrus stirs from his slumber. His wings, as vast as the heavens themselves, unfurl with a sound like distant thunder. "You have come seeking the truth, mortal one," Zephyrus said. "But knowledge is a weighty thing. Choose your question carefully, for only one answer may be given." The scholar steps forward, trembling not with fear, but with the gravity of the moment. Before them lies a desk, carved from the heart of a star, its surface shifting with symbols that glow faintly, as if alive. The great dragon's golden eyes glimmer with curiosity as the scholar finally speaks, their voice steady despite the whirlwind of emotions within. Scholar asked softly and reverently, "What is the secret to true wisdom?" A deep, melodic chuckle reverberates through the library. Zephyrus's breath, warm and fragrant with the essence of ancient ink, envelops the scholar in a comforting embrace. True wisdom lies not in the answers, but in the questions. It is not in the knowing, but in the endless pursuit. For the moment you believe you have learned all there is to learn, you have already begun to forget. As the dragon's words settle into the air, a single book drifts from the endless rows of tomes, its cover shimmering like dawn's first light. The scholar reaches out, their fingers trembling as they touch the warm surface of the book. The pages turn of their own accord, revealing symbols that shift into words that resonate within the scholar's very soul. Zephyrus spoke softly, his voice knowing, as though he had seen the scholar's journey unfold before it began. Take this with you. Share what you learn, for knowledge hoarded is knowledge wasted. Remember, the library of the cosmos will always open to those who seek not for themselves, but for others. A soft chime, like the echo of a distant bell, resonated through the air. The sound of Zephyrus's wings folding gently followed, a quiet and solemn gesture. And with that, the library faded into mist, carrying the scholar back to their own world. Yet, though they returned to the mortal realm, their heart felt lighter, their mind sharper, and their purpose clearer. Beneath the starlit sky, they awoke, clutching the precious book, a piece of the universe itself. For days, weeks, and years, the scholar devoted themselves to the pursuit of wisdom, not to possess it, but to share it. And high above the clouds, Zephyrus, his golden scales shimmering faintly, continued to watch, a silent guardian of the seekers of truth. As the music swelled gently and then faded into the soft rustling of pages turning, the narrator's voice grew reflective. And so, the cycle continued. For every seeker, a guide. For every question, a journey. As apprentices dreamed of golden staircases and whispered secrets, as teachers gazed toward the heavens, and as Zephyrus folded his ancient wings, one truth remained eternal. The pursuit of knowledge is the greatest story ever told. Whispering, serene, the narrator continued. The scholar, now a guide and a beacon of wisdom in their own right, shared the teachings of Zephyrus. Their following grew, a gathering of dreamers, wanderers, and seekers, each craving not just knowledge, but the deeper truths that shaped the universe. Among them was a young woman named Calith, a seeker with a restless spirit and a mind filled with questions too vast for the mortal world to answer. Her gaze was often drawn skyward, where the stars seemed to hum softly against the vast expanse of night. She listened intently to the scholar's tales, each word sparking new questions within her. One evening, after the others had left, Calith approached the scholar beneath the ancient oak trees. Moonlight spilled across the valley, bathing the scene in silver. "Master, I feel as though the stars are calling to me," Calith said, her voice tentative but determined. "There is something out there, something I need to understand. Do you believe that one day I could find the library, as you did?" The scholar's wise eyes studied her, a faint smile playing at the corners of their lips. They saw the same spark of curiosity and determination that had once led him to Zephyrus. "The path to the library is not found through maps or charts, Calith," the scholar replied gently. "It is a journey within. When your heart is ready, when your spirit's questions burn brighter than the answers you seek, the library will reveal itself to you." Calith nodded, her resolve unshaken. That night, as she lay beneath the stars, her dreams carried her to a place she had never seen, a vision of spiraling golden staircases and tomes that hummed with a life of their own. Weeks turned into months as Calith immersed herself in her studies, delving into mysteries both ancient and new. Slowly, she began to feel a shift in the air around her, as though the universe itself was watching, waiting. A soft sound of distant chimes and the rustling of leaves in a quiet breeze seemed to fill the air, heightening the sense of anticipation. One fateful night, as a storm brewed on the horizon and the stars were hidden behind a veil of clouds, Calith felt an inexplicable pull. Barefoot, she stepped into the cool night air, following an unseen path that wound through the valley and toward the mountains beyond. Lightning illuminated the sky, casting fleeting shadows across the land. Yet Calith felt no fear, only a growing sense of anticipation. She walked on, her heart steady with purpose, until at last she reached the edge of a cliff, where the ground seemed to fall away into nothingness. And there, as the first raindrops kissed her skin, she saw it, a golden staircase spiraling upward into the clouds, its steps shimmering with an ethereal glow. Calith's breath caught in her chest. She reached out and placed her foot on the first step. The air hummed with energy, and, for a moment, the storm seemed to quiet, as if the universe itself was holding its breath. She ascended slowly, one step at a time, the staircase carrying her higher and higher, beyond the world she had always known. At last, she reached the gates of the floating library. They towered before her, carved with intricate symbols that seemed to dance in the faint light of unseen stars. The gates creaked open, and Calith stepped inside. The library was alive with a quiet, otherworldly energy. Lanterns floated gently through the air, their golden light illuminating endless shelves filled with tomes of every shape and size. And there, in the heart of it all, coiled gracefully around a central pillar of the library, lay Zephyrus. His golden eyes opened slowly, and he regarded Calith with a look of quiet curiosity, as if recognizing something familiar in her. "You have come, young seeker," Zephyrus's deep, resonant voice filled the space. "Tell me, what is it you wish to find?" Calith's voice trembled slightly as she spoke, but her resolve remained unwavering. "I do not seek knowledge for myself, great guardian," she said firmly. "I seek the answers that will guide my people, that will light the way for those who wander in darkness." Zephyrus let out a deep, thoughtful hum, his massive wings shifting slightly as though he was considering her words with great care. "Then you are worthy," he said softly, a hint of amusement in his tone. "But know this, the answers you seek will not be given, they will be earned. The path to wisdom is not in the taking, but in the becoming." A soft sound of wind rustled the pages of ancient tomes, and the quiet murmur of parchment shifting seemed to echo through the air. With a slow, deliberate movement, Zephyrus gestured with one massive claw. A book floated toward Calith. Its cover shimmered with an otherworldly light, and its pages shifted and changed, revealing secrets yet to be written. Calith took the book with reverence, her heart swelling with both awe and purpose. As the library around her began to fade into mist, she descended the golden staircase, her steps sure and steady, ready to begin the next chapter of her journey. The music swelled softly, then faded into the quiet echoes of distant thunder and the flickering glow of candlelight. Answer, the narrator reflected, the cycle continued. For every seeker, there was a guide. For every question, a journey. And somewhere, beyond the veil of clouds, the dragon of eternal secrets watched, ever patient, waiting for the next soul brave enough to ascend the golden staircase. Whispering thoughtfully, the narrator continued. Caliph returned to the mortal world, clutching the shimmering tome given to her by Zephyrus. The weight of the book was peculiar, feather-light, yet impossibly heavy, as if it held not only answers but countless paths yet untread. For weeks, Caliph pored over its shifting pages. The words were never the same twice. Each passage seemed to respond to her thoughts, her emotions, even her questions, revealing fragments of knowledge and ancient mysteries. Yet, the book did not reveal its full secret, as if testing her resolve. Then, one evening beneath a blood-red sunset, the book's pages stilled. For the first time, the words were fixed and clear. They spoke of a journey, one that would take her far beyond her valley, to places where even whispers of Zephyrus were unknown. The soft hum of an otherworldly breeze faded in and out, as if the universe itself was breathing with her. The narrator's voice took on a gentle, mysterious tone. The journey began in the shadow of the northern peaks, where legends spoke of an ancient oracle hidden within a cavern of living crystal. The oracle, it was said, could unlock the true potential of any seeker who dared confront it. Guided by the faint glow of her mysterious tome, Caliph set out to find this mythical being. Through treacherous forests and across windswept plains, Caliph wandered, her heart a careful balance of fear and determination. The tome offered guidance only in riddles, its glowing script fading just as she deciphered its meaning. The path to wisdom is as much about the choices you make as it is about the destination, the words seemed to whisper to her one night beneath a starless sky. By the time Caliph reached the mouth of the oracle's cavern, she was battered but unbroken. Her journey had tested not only her body, but her will. Yet, as she stepped into the crystalline chamber, her breath caught in her throat. The sound of soft water droplets echoed through the cavern, mingling with a faint, resonating hum. The walls shimmered with a light that pulsed in time with her heartbeat. At the center of the cavern, suspended in a pool of liquid light, was the oracle, a being neither fully human nor fully divine, with eyes like twin galaxies and a voice that resonated in Caliph's very soul. The oracle's calm, ethereal voice filled the space. "Child of the stars, why have you come? What truth do you seek?" Caliph hesitated, feeling the weight of the moment. She thought of her people, her mentor, and the wisdom of Zephyrus. But deeper still, she thought of the questions that had burned within her for as long as she could remember, the desire not just to know, but to understand. Finally, her voice steady and resolute, Caliph spoke. "I seek the wisdom to guide others, and the strength to bear the weight of what I learn." The oracle's gaze seemed to pierce through Caliph, peeling back the layers of her soul. In a voice soft yet imbued with power, the oracle spoke. "To guide others, you must first face the truths you hide from yourself. The path forward lies within." A sense of quiet suspense filled the air as the cavern began to change. The shimmering light solidified, transforming into mirrors that surrounded Caliph. But these were not ordinary reflections. They showed not her face, but moments from her past, moments of doubt, fear, and mistakes she had long buried. The oracle's voice echoed in the stillness of the cavern. To carry the weight of knowledge, one must first accept the weight of their own truth. Caliph's heart pounded in her chest as she stood before the mirrors, each one reflecting a fragment of herself she had tried to forget. Fear gripped her, threatening to overwhelm, but then she recalled the words of Zephyrus. True wisdom is not in the knowing, but in the seeking. Drawing a deep breath, Caliph stepped toward the closest mirror, ready to face the parts of herself she had long avoided. The soft swell of strings underscored her resolve as she took her first step. Hours, or perhaps days, passed as Caliph confronted her reflections. Each step brought clarity, not only about herself but about the world she sought to guide. By the time the mirrors faded and the cavern returned to its crystalline beauty, she felt lighter, stronger, and more certain of her purpose. The oracle, its form shimmering like starlight, smiled softly. You have proven yourself, seeker. Take this shard of light. It will guide you to the next piece of the puzzle, but remember, each answer leads to a greater question. A soft chime rang in the air as a fragment of crystal appeared in Caliph's hand. She held it gently, its faint glow pulsing like a heartbeat. Caliph left the cavern, the shard of crystal glowing faintly in her palm. She understood now that her journey was far from over. If the library was the beginning, and the oracle the next step, what other wonders awaited her? As she gazed at the horizon, where the first light of dawn stretched across the land, Caliph felt the stirrings of a new purpose within her. She was not just a seeker of answers, but a weaver of stories, a guide for those who would one day follow her path. The music swelled, carrying with it a sense of hope and infinite possibilities. Somewhere, high above the world, Zephyrus watched, his golden eyes filled with quiet pride. Caliph's journey was no longer hers alone. It marked the beginning of a new chapter in the eternal story of seekers and wisdom. Whispering contemplatively, the narrator concluded. Caliph sat beside a crackling fire, the shard of crystal delicately held in her hand. Its faint glow pulsed in rhythm with her heartbeat, as though it were alive. No matter how long she stared into its depths, the shard revealed nothing, just endless light refracted into infinite patterns. The journey was far from over. The questions were many, and the answers yet to be discovered. Caliph stood at the threshold of the hidden chamber, her breath coming in quick, shallow gasps. The key, still warm in her hand, pulsed with a light that seemed to call to something deep within her. The shard she held matched its rhythm, as though the two had always belonged together. She stepped forward, feeling the weight of centuries bearing down on her as she approached the ancient pedestal. The moment her fingers brushed against the key, the chamber trembled. Dust swirled and fell away like forgotten memories, revealing a door, one that had remained sealed for an eternity. It had been waiting, just as she had. Waiting for the one who could unlock its secrets. Caliph's heart hammered in her chest. The voice of the ruins, deep and commanding, echoed through the chamber. Bearer of the shard, you seek that which was sealed. Do you understand the cost of your journey? She hesitated only for a moment, feeling the weight of the question settle in her soul. Knowledge comes at a price, she thought, remembering the oracle's words. I do, she whispered, though her voice barely echoed in the vast, empty space. Knowledge is never without cost. The air around her seemed to grow heavier, but with a steady hand, she placed the key into the lock. The door groaned, its hinges creaking as if it had not moved in millennia. As it slowly swung open, the light that spilled from the other side was not harsh or blinding, but warm, inviting, a stark contrast to the darkness that had enveloped her for so long. The moment she stepped through, Calith's senses were overwhelmed. It was as though she had entered another world entirely, one untouched by time. The vast space before her stretched endlessly, a library of knowledge suspended in midair like stars scattered across the void. Books and scrolls floated gently, their pages fluttering in the absence of wind, while the walls shimmered with veins of light. In the center of the room stood a solitary throne, upon which sat a figure cloaked in robes that seemed to shimmer with stardust. The figure turned slowly, its eyes glowing with the same golden hue as the shard. Time seemed to freeze as the being's voice resonated within Calith's very soul, a voice that was neither male nor female, but something beyond both. Welcome, Calith. You have unlocked what was sealed, and now you stand at the threshold of the greatest knowledge the world has ever known. Calith took a step forward, her pulse quickening. She had come this far, and she would not turn back now. What is this place? She asked, her voice steady but filled with awe. This is the archive of truth, the figure answered, its voice like the resonance of countless echoes. It holds the answers to all things, but be warned, what you seek will change you. Knowledge, once gained, cannot be unlearned. Are you prepared to bear the burden of truth? Calith paused, her thoughts a whirlwind. She thought of the oracle's warning, the words that had echoed in her mind since her journey began. The cost of knowledge is more than you may be prepared to pay. Yet, despite the weight of that warning, Calith knew that she could not walk away. She had come to this place for a reason. She had come to seek not only answers but a deeper understanding of herself and the world around her. I am prepared, she said, her voice firm with newfound resolve. The figure on the throne smiled, a knowing expression that seemed to transcend time. Very well. Come closer. As Calith approached, the air around her seemed to hum with energy, as if the very space between the pages of the books was alive. She could feel the knowledge contained within those books reaching out to her, whispering fragments of secrets and truths that danced just beyond her grasp. The figure gestured to the center of the room, where a pedestal stood, bathed in soft light. Upon it rested a single book, ancient, its cover worn. Upon it rested a single book, ancient, its cover worn with age, yet still glowing with an inner light. The figure's eyes met Caleth's as it spoke once more. This is the Book of Origins. It contains the first truth, the one that was written at the dawn of time. But be warned, Caleth, every answer you find within these pages will only lead you to a greater question. Caleth's heart beat louder now, each pulse matching the rhythm of the knowledge that surrounded her. She reached out, her fingers brushing against the cover of the book. The moment she touched it, the air seemed to thicken with energy, and the ground beneath her trembled. The book's pages fluttered open, revealing a single line of text, written in a language older than anything Caleth had ever encountered. The words glowed softly, shifting and changing before her eyes as if the book itself was alive. The first truth is not in what is written, but in what is yet to be discovered. Caleth's breath caught in her throat. It was not the answer she had expected, but it was a beginning. And for a seeker like her, that was enough. The figure on the throne watched her with quiet approval. You have taken the first step, Caleth. The path ahead will not be easy, but it is yours to walk. Continue seeking, for the answers will come, just as the questions do. Caleth stood there for a long moment, gazing at the words in the Book of Origins. A new purpose stirred within her, stronger than ever before. This was only the beginning, and she knew that the journey ahead would be long and fraught with challenges. But now, more than ever, she was ready. With the book in hand and the shards still pulsing softly in her palm, Caleth turned and made her way toward the door, her heart steady, her resolve unwavering. She had unlocked the first truth, but the greater questions lay ahead. Questions that only she could answer. As she stepped back into the vast, eternal library, the figure on the throne watched her leave, its glowing eyes filled with quiet pride. The cycle of seekers, guides, and wisdom continued, and Caleth's place in that endless story had only just begun. Caleth stood frozen before the pedestal, her heart racing as the twin shards pulsed in her hands. The air around her seemed to hum, a faint vibration that resonated deep within her chest. It was as though the shards recognized one another, their light weaving together in an intricate dance of gold and silver. The longer she held them, the stronger the pull between them became, urging her to place them side by side. With trembling hands, she gently set her shard beside its twin. The moment the two pieces touched, the room erupted in a brilliant flash of light. Caleth staggered back, her vision overwhelmed by the intensity of the glow. It was as if the very essence of the universe had been condensed into this moment. And then, as suddenly as it had begun, the light faded, leaving her standing in stunned silence. Before her, the air shimmered and rippled, as though the very fabric of reality had been torn open. And from within that tear, a vision began to form, fragments of memory, woven together like threads of a forgotten tapestry. Caleth gasped, her breath caught in her throat as she witnessed a scene of incredible beauty and tragedy. She saw a city, unlike any she had ever known. Towers of crystal and gold rose from the earth, their spires reaching toward the heavens as though they were trying to touch the stars themselves. Dragons, their scales gleaming in every color imaginable, soared through the sky, their wings casting shadows over the shimmering streets below. At the heart of the city stood a great library, its structure grand and imposing, its walls lined with ancient tomes and scrolls, not unlike the library she had visited with Zephyrus. But the beauty of the scene quickly turned to horror. The skies above the city darkened, turning a deep, blood red. The once glistening towers began to crumble, their foundations shaking as shadowy figures swept through the streets, their forms indistinct but their presence overwhelming. The cries of the city's inhabitants echoed in the distance, their voices drowned by the deafening roar of destruction. A voice boomed through the chamber, deep and hollow, its words cutting through the air like a blade. The shards are all that remain of the lost kingdom. To unlock their full power, you must gather the others. Only then can the truth of the fall be revealed. The vision began to fade, the vibrant images dissipating into nothingness, leaving Caliph standing alone in the quiet chamber once more. The shards in her hands pulsed with a steady, unwavering glow, their light now brighter and more intense than before. Caliph's heart pounded in her chest as the weight of the vision sank in. She knew now that her journey had taken a darker turn. The shards were not just keys to an ancient power, they were pieces of a long-lost history, and it was her destiny to uncover the truth of Oronus, the cradle of stars, and its untimely fall. With a deep breath, Caliph clenched the shards in her hands, their warmth seeping into her skin. She could feel the weight of the knowledge they carried, the ancient secrets buried within him, waiting to be unearthed. Her mission had grown far more complex than she had ever imagined. The kingdom that had once flourished with knowledge and magic was now lost to time, its fall shrouded in mystery and darkness. But Caliph was not afraid. She had come this far, and there was no turning back now. She would uncover the truth, no matter what it cost. For the first time since she had embarked on this journey, Caliph felt a deep sense of purpose. This was no longer just about seeking answers for herself. This was about bringing light to the shadows, about uncovering the secrets of a world long forgotten, and about ensuring that the legacy of Oronus would not be lost forever. She ascended the stairway with newfound determination, the shards glowing faintly in her hands, their light guiding her toward the next stage of her journey. Somewhere in the vast expanse of the world, the other shards waited to be found. And with each one, she would get closer to uncovering the truth of the fall of Oronus, the truth of the ancient kingdom that had once reached for the stars. And somewhere beyond the veil of the stars, Zephyrus watched over her, his golden eyes gleaming with quiet approval. Caliph's journey was far from over. The path ahead was fraught with danger and uncertainty, but she was no longer the uncertain seeker she had once been. She was a guide, a bearer of the shard, and the fate of an ancient kingdom rested in her hands. As Caliph stepped into the unknown, the wind whispered through the trees, carrying with it the faintest echo of a forgotten time, of a kingdom that had risen from the stars and fallen to shadow, its legacy hidden within the shards of its greatest treasure. The Codex Aeternum, the compendium of all knowledge, still waited. And Caliph was the key to unlocking its mysteries. Oronus, once a beacon of knowledge and light, stood as a testament to the brilliance and fragility of existence. It was not just a city, but a sanctuary, a place where truth was sought with every breath and every step. Scholars, travelers, and dreamers from all corners of the realms came to its gates, bearing questions, stories, and mysteries. They found not only wisdom but compassion in the heart of the Ori, a people whose desire for understanding knew no bounds. The city gleamed with the light of the stars themselves, the towers shimmering like beacons against the endless sky. The people of Oronus were not mere mortals, but celestial artisans, weavers of light and energy, drawing their knowledge from the very heavens. Their craft, celestial weaving, was a magic unlike any other, allowing them to bind the essence of the stars into everything they touched. Their creations were alive, breathing with the power of the cosmos. Yet, even within such brilliance, Oronus was not immune to the shadows that lurked beyond the stars, hidden in the vastness of the void. The downfall of the great city began with a cosmic event, an rift in the sky, a wound in the heavens that split the universe wide open. Through this rift came the umbral ones, beings born from nothingness, shadows that consumed all light in their path and left only emptiness in their wake. The Ori were unprepared for such an enemy, for the umbral ones were not of the world they knew. They were born of the void, creatures that existed only to devour, to unmake the very fabric of creation. Desperate, the Ori sought the counsel of the elder dragons, great beings of ancient power who had watched over Oronus since its foundation. Together, they devised a plan to seal the rift and banish the umbral ones, but the cost would be unimaginable. One by one, the elder dragons gave their lives to the cause. They wove an unbreakable seal around the rift, sacrificing not only their lives but their very essences. Their scales, their breath, their very souls were bound into the shards of crystal that would anchor the seal. The Lumini spire, the towering heart of Oronus, became the anchor for the magic, its light dimming as the Codex Aeternum, the living compendium of all knowledge, was locked away within its depths. The dragon's sacrifice held the darkness at bay, but it came at a terrible price. With the dragons gone, Oronus was left without its guardians. The once vibrant city fell into ruin, its crystal towers losing their luster, the light of the stars fading into silence. The Ori, without their protectors, could no longer sustain their celestial craft. The people scattered to the winds, carrying fragments of their knowledge and the memory of a once great civilization to distant lands. And Oronus, the cradle of stars, faded into legend, its name erased from maps, its wonders lost to the sands of time. But the shards of the elder dragons remained. Hidden in the farthest corners of the world, these fragments of power and memory lay dormant, waiting for the day when they would be found, when the light of Oronus would rise again. It was said that only a true seeker, one with the courage to face the darkness, would be able to piece together the lost legacy of the Ori and unlock the secrets of the Codex Aeternum. Calith's discovery of the twin shards was no mere accident. The tome she had found, the visions that had guided her steps, all pointed toward a greater purpose. She was not just meant to uncover the lost history of Oronus, but to reignite its light, to protect the realms from the shadows that still lingered beyond the veil of the stars. As Calith's journey continued, she began to notice the signs, the ancient symbols carved into forgotten stones, the fragments of crystal hidden in the most unlikely places, the songs sung by wandering bards that hinted at the lost knowledge of the Ori. Each clue she uncovered brought her closer to the truth, closer to the Codex Aeternum and the legacy of the Elder Dragons. But Calith was not alone in her quest. In the shadows, unseen forces stirred. The Umbral Ones, once banished, began to stir again, their hunger awakened by the faint light of the shards she carried. Their insatiable hunger for the light of Auronus was far from extinguished, and their whispers echoed through the realms as they sought to reclaim the power that had once been theirs. Her journey was no longer just a quest for knowledge, it had become a race against time. The future of all the realms hung in the balance, and the weight of the shards in her hands grew heavier with each step. The darkness that had once consumed Auronus was stirring once more, and only by piecing together the lost legacy could Calith hope to banish it for good. The path ahead was uncertain, fraught with danger, but Calith had come too far to turn back. She had seen the light of Auronus, and she would fight to restore it, no matter the cost. The echoes of the past called to her, and she would answer, for the realms, and for the legacy of the Ori. Calith felt the pulse of the shards in her hands as she walked through the shadowed forest, their light cutting through the growing dusk. They weren't just guiding her, they were pulling her, urging her forward, as if they had a destination in mind. She couldn't shake the feeling that something was following her. Every rustle of leaves, every distant crack of a branch, set her nerves on edge. The whispers of the Umbral Ones had been growing louder in her mind, scraping against her thoughts like cold fingers. "I'm not imagining this," she thought, looking over her shoulder. The world was silent, yet somehow she couldn't shake the feeling that unseen eyes were on her. Stopping by a small campfire, she opened the tome, placing the shards beside it. The pages shimmered and shifted, forming words in an ancient script that she was beginning to understand. "When three become one, the veil will thin. But beware, the shadows always hunger." 3. She'd been so focused on the two shards in her hands, she hadn't considered there was a third. The message felt urgent, a warning, but she couldn't quite grasp its meaning. The whispers intensified. She quickly closed the book and tucked it away, the feeling of being watched only growing stronger. "I need to move faster," Calith thought, rising to her feet. "The shadows are getting closer." At the heart of the chamber lay the third shard, its light faint but unwavering. Calith's breath caught as she approached, each step heavier than the last. The air around her seemed to thrum with an energy she could feel deep in her bones. As her fingers brushed the shard, the shadows in the chamber began to stir. They shifted along the edges of the room, their forms twisting in unsettling ways, half hidden in the darkness. The whispers grew louder, like fragmented voices brushing against her mind. "Light belongs to us." The words chilled her, but Calith clenched the twin shards in her hand, their light flaring in defiance. The third shard reacted, its dim glow brightening, aligning with the others in a brilliant flash. A shockwave of light burst from him, pushing the shadows back, scattering them into the corners of the room. The hum of energy echoed in the air, a deep resonance that lingered long after the light faded. Calith stood alone now, the third shard in her grasp. She felt its weight, heavier than the others, not just with power, but with something deeper. As she held it, her mind was flooded with images, the final moments of the elder dragons. Their sacrifice to seal the rift. Their sorrow, their hope, and their belief that someone would rise to finish what they had started. The shards are more than relics, Caliph realized, the truth sinking in. They are a legacy. And a warning. The veil between light and shadow was thinning. The umbral ones were stirring again, drawn by the power of the shards. Caliph couldn't ignore the warning, but she wouldn't be stopped. She wasn't just a seeker anymore. She was a guardian, tasked with protecting the light of Ouronis and restoring what had been lost. With renewed determination, she tucked the third shard securely with the others. She turned toward the path ahead, ready to face whatever came next. The shards glowed faintly at her side as she emerged from the canyon, each step carrying her closer to her next destination. The journey wasn't over. More shards waited to be found, and the truth of Ouronis had yet to be fully uncovered. Somewhere beyond the horizon, Zephyrus watched, his golden eyes filled with quiet pride. Caliph's journey was far from complete, and the light of Ouronis would rise again, if she could stay ahead of the shadows. But with every step forward, the light flickered, and Caliph knew the danger was only growing. The path ahead would not be easy, but she had no choice but to press on. Caliph's pulse quickened as the crimson light flared around her, its intensity almost suffocating. The whispers of the umbral ones clung to the air, tugging at her mind with promises of untold power. Yet she could feel the weight of their manipulation, their insidious pull. She hesitated, the path forward clouded with uncertainty. But Caliph was not swayed by the whispers. She had already faced the darkness, and she would not let it claim her now. Her grip on the shards tightened, their combined light flaring brightly, pushing back the shadows that sought to consume her. Voice of the obelisk said, deep, resonant, but now with a note of approval, you have chosen wisely, seeker. The balance has been tested. Proceed. As Caliph leapt to the final platform, the crimson barrier dissolved, and the path before her opened. The weight of the shards lifted from her chest, their light now in perfect harmony, as though the trial had purified them, aligned them to her purpose. The abyss below her yawned, vast and empty, but Caliph stood firm. The trial had been a test, not just of physical skill, but of her very soul. The balance between light and shadow was delicate, and Caliph had embraced it fully. The world around her began to shift again, the platforms vanishing as the swirling vortex of light and shadow collapsed into itself. The obelisk's hum faded, leaving behind a deep silence, the kind that comes only after a storm has passed. Caliph stood in a new space now, one that felt different, as though the very air had changed. Before her was a doorway, ancient and adorned with symbols she could almost understand. And beyond it, she knew, lay the next step of her journey. She could feel the pull of destiny, guiding her beyond this trial. The shards had spoken to her. The obelisk had tested her. But there was more to uncover, more to learn. And Caliph, her resolve unbroken, her purpose clear, knew that her path would lead her to the truth of Ouronis, piece by piece, shard by shard. With a steady breath, Caliph approached the doorway. The light of the shards flickered, casting their glow on the stone before her. Whatever lay beyond, she was ready. For the future of the realms, for the fallen guardians, and for herself, she would continue. And somewhere, deep in the heart of the darkness, the umbral ones waited. But Caliph was not afraid. The light would prevail. The archway stood as a silent sentinel, its presence both a promise and a warning. Caliph approached, her heart beating in time with the pulsing light of the shards. They seemed to guide her, urging her to step closer, to unlock the secrets that lay hidden within this forgotten place. The air around her hummed with anticipation, as if the very forest held its breath. She reached out, her fingers brushing the stone. A surge of energy coursed through her, and the runes on the archway flared with brilliance. The shards in her hands responded, their light converging with the glow of the ancient markings. The ground trembled slightly beneath her feet, and for a moment, Caliph felt as if she were standing at the threshold of something much greater than herself. Voice of the archway said, deep and echoing, to pass beyond, seeker, you must face what lies within. The truth of Auronus can only be revealed by confronting the shadows of your own soul. The voice faded, leaving Caliph standing in the clearing, her pulse quickening. She knew this moment would test her in ways she could not predict. The journey had already revealed much, about Auronus, the shards, and the umbral ones. But this was different. The path forward would not just reveal the truth of the ancient kingdom, but the truth of herself. Caliph stepped through the archway, feeling the air shift around her as the world beyond the forest began to dissolve. She felt herself falling, though her feet never left the ground. The edges of her vision blurred, and the shards pulsed wildly in her hands. Then, the world snapped into focus. She stood in a vast, empty chamber, its walls covered in murals of Auronus in its prime. Dragons soaring across skies filled with stars, towers reaching toward the heavens, and the Lumini spire gleaming in its full glory. But as her eyes wandered, Caliph noticed something unsettling, shadows lurking at the edges of the images, their forms twisted, as if something had corrupted the very history of the kingdom. The ground beneath her feet shifted again, and before her, a shadow took form. It was a mirror of herself, Caliph, but darker, with eyes that gleamed with an unsettling, malevolent light. The shadow smiled, though it was not a smile of joy. It was a grin of knowing, of some hidden truth that Caliph had yet to uncover. Shadow Caliph said, whispering, with malice, you seek the light, but you do not understand it. The shadows are as much a part of you as the light. Can you truly embrace both? The air thickened, heavy with the weight of the question. Caliph's heart raced. She could feel the shadows pressing in, echoing her own doubts, her own fears. They had always been there, lurking just beneath the surface of her resolve. But Caliph knew now what she had not known before. She was no longer just a seeker of truth. She was a guardian of it, and the light within her had grown stronger with every trial. The darkness may have whispered, but she had learned to listen to the light, to trust its pull. With a deep breath, Caliph stepped forward, her hand holding the shards tightly. She did not fear the shadow. Instead, she faced it head-on, the combined light of the shards flaring to life in defiance. "Shadow," Caliph said, mocking, yet uncertain, "you cannot escape what you are." "I am not escaping," Caliph replied, her voice steady. "I am embracing it. The light and the shadow are one. Together, they will show me the truth." The shadow recoiled, its form flickering and dissolving as the shard's light grew brighter. The murals on the walls shifted, the twisted images straightening, revealing a new vision of a kingdom reborn, of Oronus healed. Caliph had passed the trial, and the path forward was clearer than ever. The truth of Oronus, and the future of the realms, lay within her grasp. The shards pulsed urgently in Caliph's hand, their light weaving together into a stream that connected to the runes on the archway. Slowly, the runes began to shift and glow more brightly, their patterns forming words. Runes of the archway said, "Here lies the hall of reflections, where the past speaks to those who dare to listen." The hum grew, resonating through the clearing, deepening the sense of mystery that surrounded her. Caliph stepped through the archway, her heart pounding with a mix of anticipation and trepidation. The air on the other side felt charged, thick with the weight of ages. As she moved deeper into the hall, the world around her shimmered, blurring like a dream in the process of unfolding. She stood in a vast, grand hall, its walls lined with towering mirrors, each one framed in what seemed like crystal that caught the faintest glimmer of light. The mirrors were not still, they seemed alive, their surfaces swirling with light and shadow, as if each one contained a world of its own. As Caliph approached the nearest mirror, its surface stilled, revealing an image from the past, Oronus in its prime. She saw its crystal towers gleaming in the sunlight, its people moving through streets alive with invention, music, and laughter. It was a world full of life, hope, and promise. But then, as if to remind her of what was lost, the scene shifted. The sky darkened, and a crimson hue bled across the horizon as the rift tore open, spilling shadows into the heart of the city. The elder dragons took flight, their wings glowing with a fierce, radiant light as they defended their home. Caliph watched with a pang of sorrow as she witnessed their sacrifice, their last moments of defiance against the darkness that consumed them. The scene faded, and Caliph moved on, drawn deeper into the hall. Each mirror seemed to offer another glimpse of history, both grand and intimate. Some showed the glory of Oronus, others, its destruction. There were moments of victory and defeat, of power and loss. But as she walked, the reflections grew more personal. One mirror showed her own journey, the trials she had faced, the choices she had made. Another offered a glimpse of the future, fragments of paths she might yet walk, filled with uncertainty and possibility. But it was the mirror at the far end of the hall that caught her attention most powerfully. Unlike the others, its surface was dark and impenetrable, as if it held a secret too great to reveal. Caliph felt a pull, a magnetic force drawing her toward it. Standing before the mirror, Caliph held the shards tightly. They flared brightly, their combined light piercing the shadowed surface. Slowly, the mirror began to clear, revealing a figure cloaked in darkness. The figure's eyes gleamed faintly with an otherworldly light, and its voice was both familiar and strange. Mysterious figure said, "Seeker of light, bearer of shards. Do you understand the burden you carry?" Caliph stood firm, her resolve unwavering despite the unsettling presence before her. "I understand that knowledge is not without cost. But I will not turn away." The figure's expression shifted, as if it was studying her, its eyes narrowing with quiet power. Mysterious figure said, "Then know this. The shards are not merely fragments of the past. They are keys to the Codex Eternum, and the Codex is not just knowledge. It is the power to shape reality itself. The light of Ouronis can be reignited, but it will come at a price. Will you pay it?" The figure's voice echoed in the hall, reverberating through Caliph's mind, and the figure began to fade, retreating back into the shadows from which it had emerged. Caliph stood motionless, staring into the darkened mirror as the weight of its words sank in. The Codex Eternum, an ancient, powerful force capable of restoring Ouronis, but at a cost. What price would she be asked to pay? Could she truly wield such power without losing herself in the process? The hum of the mirrors grew louder, their lights dimming as if waiting for her decision. The path ahead was uncertain, but Caliph felt a new sense of determination. She had come this far, and she could not turn back now. The light of Ouronis could be reborn, but the journey to shape its future would require more than just courage. It would require a willingness to confront the darkness within and without. The Codex Eternum pulsed with ancient power, its light weaving around Caliph like a living entity, connecting her to the very fabric of the universe. The warmth of its energy filled her, and for a fleeting moment, she could feel the weight of all that had been, all that was, and all that could be. The shards in her hand thrummed in response, their light now perfectly synchronized with the Codex's glow. Caliph stood at the threshold of eternity, the vast knowledge of the Codex unfurling before her like an endless horizon. The visions were overwhelming, each one a fragment of a greater whole, an intricate dance of light and shadow, hope and despair. She saw the rise and fall of civilizations, the creation of worlds, the birth of stars, and the death of galaxies. It was more than she could comprehend, yet she felt an undeniable connection to it all. As the light of the Codex enveloped her, Caliph felt the full weight of the responsibility she had accepted. This power, this knowledge, was not meant for anyone being to wield alone. It was a legacy, a gift, and a burden. The journey ahead would test her resolve, her wisdom, and her compassion. The voice of the Codex resonated within her mind, soft yet powerful. Codex Eternum said, "You are the guardian now, Seeker. You will carry the light of Ouronis forward, but remember, balance must be maintained. The shadows will always seek to consume the light, but it is your choice whether to embrace the darkness or let it guide you toward greater understanding." Caliph nodded, her resolve solidifying. She had come to understand that true power was not about dominance, but about balance. It was not about eradicating darkness, but about understanding it, using it, and ultimately transforming it into something that could serve the greater good. As the Codex's light began to fade, Caliph felt the weight of the knowledge settle within her. The path ahead was no longer shrouded in uncertainty. She was no longer merely a seeker, she was a guardian, entrusted with the knowledge of the past and the future. With a final glance at the shimmering pages of the Codex, Caliph turned toward the door, her heart filled with determination. The whispers of the Umbral Ones still echoed faintly in the distance, but now, they seemed distant, less threatening, less certain of their victory. The light of Ouronis had been reignited, and with it, Caliph's unwavering resolve. The journey was far from over. There would be more trials, more choices, and more sacrifices. But Caliph was ready. The shadows may still linger, but they would no longer control her fate. The light of the Codex would guide her, and with it, she would shape a new future for Ouronis, one where light and shadow existed in harmony. As Caliph stepped out of the spire, the sun began to rise on the horizon, its golden light illuminating the world before her. The path ahead was uncertain, but she knew one thing for sure. She would walk it with purpose, with courage, and with the unwavering belief that even in the darkest of times, light could always be found. Caliph moved forward with purpose, the weight of her new role settling around her like the very air of the desert. Her staff, now pulsing with the ancient power of the Codex, felt alive in her hand. Each step she took resonated with the light within her, a light that had once been scattered in fragments but was now united in the form of the crystal-turned staff. The whispers of the Umbral Ones, though quieter, still lingered in the air. Caliph could feel their presence, the cold touch of darkness reaching toward her, testing her resolve. But the light of the Codex, the knowledge and wisdom it had imparted to her, burned brighter than any shadow that sought to envelop it. The journey ahead was uncertain, fraught with dangers and challenges she could not yet fully comprehend. But she had made her choice. She had chosen to be the guardian, to protect the light and keep the balance intact. There was no turning back now. As she crossed the desert, her staff glowing faintly in the dawn's first light, Caliph felt the pull of something greater than herself. The Codex was not just a source of knowledge, it was a guide, a beacon that would lead her through the trials yet to come. Its power was immense, but with it came the weight of responsibility. The more she learned, the more she understood that true wisdom was not simply in knowing the future, but in shaping it, in using that knowledge to protect those who could not protect themselves. The spire behind her faded into the distance, but its presence remained in her heart, a reminder of the trials she had faced and the power she now carried. The horizon stretched out before her, a vast and unknown expanse, but she walked with confidence. Each step was a reaffirmation of her commitment. She was no longer just the seeker of the Codex. She was its guardian, its protector. And as she walked into the rising sun, she knew the journey would test her in ways she could not yet imagine. New allies would be found, and enemies would rise, but Caliph would face them all with the wisdom and strength of the Codex by her side. The light of Ouronis would shine again, but it would not be without sacrifice. The wind whispered once more, as if carrying the voice of Zephyrus from afar, a reminder that the story was far from over. The journey continues. And Caliph, the guardian, pressed on. Thank you for being a part of Calm Cloud Chronicles. If you enjoyed this story, let us know by liking, sharing, and subscribing. Until next time, stay peaceful and keep dreaming.